On a night when most of the world was asleep, the United States military erased a significant portion of Iran's naval power from existence. What if I told you this was one of the most consequential naval strikes of the 21st century? And it barely made the front page. You've seen the headlines. But nobody is telling you what actually happened, who got hit, what was destroyed, and why this single night could reshape the entire Middle East. The Persian Gulf has always been a pressure cooker. Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply flows through the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway so narrow, so contested, that a single military incident there can shake global markets within hours. For years, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, the IRGCN, used that geography as leverage. Harassment of commercial vessels, seizures, drone swarms, speedboat tactics designed to provoke without triggering full-scale war. But something changed. The U.S. military crossed a threshold, and the strikes on Iran's naval forces weren't just a tactical response. They were a strategic statement. So what exactly happened? What did the U.S. hit? How did they hit it? And most importantly, what comes next? Let's break it down. To understand these strikes, you have to understand the playbook Iran's Navy has been running for decades. The IRGCN is not your conventional Navy. Forget aircraft carriers and destroyers. Iran's naval doctrine is built around asymmetric warfare, the art of using cheaper, faster, more unpredictable forces to neutralize a technologically superior enemy. Think swarms of fast attack boats, mines planted in international shipping lanes, anti-ship missiles hidden in coastal mountain ranges, suicide drones launched from vessels that look like ordinary fishing boats. This strategy has a name: swarming. The idea is simple: overwhelm a larger enemy through sheer numbers and chaos before they can coordinate a response. And for years, it worked. Iran harassed, provoked, and intimidated, all while staying just below the threshold that would justify a full military response, until that threshold moved. Throughout 2024 and into 2025, Iran-backed Houthi forces in Yemen, armed and equipped by Tehran, had been launching ballistic missiles and drones at commercial shipping in the Red Sea. It was costing global trade billions. The U.S. Navy was burning through expensive interceptor missiles to shoot down cheap Iranian drones. The calculus shifted. Washington was no longer willing to play defense indefinitely. In just a moment, I'm going to walk you through exactly what the U.S. hit, and the technology they used is something straight out of a science fiction film. When the order came down, it wasn't a single missile fired from a single ship. This was a layered, multi-domain operation, and understanding each layer tells you everything about where modern warfare is heading. Layer 1, Tomahawk land attack missiles. Launched from U.S. Navy destroyers positioned in the Arabian Sea, Tomahawks are the workhorse of American long-range strikes. GPS-guided, flying at subsonic speeds, capable of threading through complex terrain to hit a target the size of a car from hundreds of miles away. Multiple IRGCN naval bases and logistics hubs were targeted, facilities used to store fast attack boats, fuel supplies, and drone launch infrastructure. Layer 2, F/A, 18 and F-35 strike packages. While missiles hit fixed infrastructure, and carrier-based aircraft were simultaneously executing strikes on mobile assets, naval vessels at sea and in harbor, the F-35 stealth profile meant Iranian radar systems had almost no warning time. By the time air defense is fully activated, the ordnance was already on target. Layer 3, naval gunfire and drone interdiction. A significant portion of IRGCN capability exists on small, fast, hard-to-track vessels. U.S. destroyers used a combination of deck guns, Hellfire missile systems, and counter-drone technology to neutralize threats directly on the water. Now here's the detail that changes everything, and most analysts glossed right over it. The U.S. didn't just destroy hardware, they targeted command and control nodes, the communications infrastructure that allows IRGCN commanders to coordinate their swarm tactics in real time. Without that ability to communicate, Iran's entire asymmetric strategy collapses. Individual boats become isolated. Swarm tactics require coordination, and that coordination was systematically dismantled. That's not a tactical strike. That's a strategic decapitation. But did it actually work? And what was Iran's response? Because what they did next is something almost nobody predicted. When a nation's military is struck, there are only a few ways to respond. You escalate, you retaliate, or you absorb the blow and recalibrate. Iran's leadership faced an impossible choice in the hours after the strikes. The IRGCN, the prized instrument of Iran's regional power projection, had just been publicly humiliated. Images of burning naval assets are not something you can spin away domestically. The regime's credibility was on the line, but a direct conventional military response against U.S. forces risked triggering the full weight of American military power. Iran's leadership has survived for 45 years by being strategically patient. They don't take suicidal gambles. So what did they do? They went quiet. Iranian state media reported the strikes as minor incidents with limited damage. IRGCN commanders made public appearances projecting calm. And behind the scenes, diplomatic backchannels through Oman and Qatar began buzzing with quiet communication. But silence at the strategic level doesn't mean inaction at the operational level. Within 72 hours, there were reports of increased IRGCN activity near the Strait of Hormuz. Not aggressive, but visible. A reminder that they still exist, that they can still disrupt. It was a carefully calibrated signal. We are hurt, but we are not finished. And that ambiguity, that tension between damage and defiance, is exactly where the most dangerous phase of this story begins. Let's zoom out, because what happened in the Gulf doesn't stay in the Gulf. First, the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 21 million barrels of oil pass through that strait every single day. Any sustained disruption sends energy prices spiraling globally. The speed and precision of U.S. action actually served a stabilizing function. It demonstrated that the U.S. military can suppress Iranian naval capability faster than Iran can disrupt shipping. That's a deterrence message aimed not just at Tehran, but at Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, and every energy importer watching. Second, the Houthi equation. Iran's proxy network, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, various Iraqi militias, operates on the assumption that Tehran can resupply, fund, and arm them indefinitely. Destroying naval logistics infrastructure doesn't just hurt Iran directly. It degrades the supply chain that keeps those proxies armed. Hit the delivery mechanism, and you're indirectly squeezing every group in that network simultaneously. Third, the great power signal. China and Russia have been closely watching how the U.S. responds to Iranian provocation. Because the calculus in the Taiwan Strait in Eastern Europe is partly informed by American credibility in the Gulf. A U.S. that responds decisively and precisely is a U.S. that adversaries in Beijing and Moscow take more seriously. These strikes were, in many ways, a message with a global address. But here's the question that nobody has a clean answer to, and it might be the most important one of all. What happens if Iran decides the cost of restraint is higher than the cost of escalation? Military strategists call this the cornered animal problem, a regime under enough domestic pressure, from economic sanctions, from internal dissent, and from the humiliation of public military defeat, may calculate that a dramatic escalation is its only path to political survival. Iran has nuclear ambitions, it has long-range missiles, and it has proxies positioned within striking distance of U.S. allies across the entire region. The strikes may have degraded Iran's naval capability, but they may have also accelerated a very different kind of threat. Let's bring this home. What happened in the Persian Gulf was not just a military operation. It was a moment that crystallized everything about 21st century great power competition, the role of precision technology, the importance of information warfare, and the delicate dance between deterrence and escalation. The U.S. military demonstrated something critical, that it can reach into one of the world's most contested maritime environments, dismantle a sophisticated asymmetric threat, and exit, all within a single operational cycle. But military dominance and strategic success are not the same thing. Iran is damaged, but Iran is not defeated. And a damaged adversary with nuclear ambitions, hardened proxies, and a leadership under domestic pressure is, in many ways, more unpredictable than a confident one. The Strait of Hormuz will remain a flashpoint, the proxy networks will adapt, and the next chapter of this conflict, whatever form it takes, will be shaped by decisions being made right now in Washington, Tehran, Riyadh, and Beijing. So I'll leave you with this question, and I genuinely want to hear your answer in the comments below. Do you think these strikes made the region more stable? Or did they light a fuse that hasn't gone off yet? Drop your take below. I read every comment, and if you want to understand how wars are actually fought, not how the news tells you they are, subscribe. This channel is dedicated to U.S. military strategy, naval warfare, and the weapons and decisions that shape the world. Hit the bell because the next video is one you won't want to miss.